welcome. When we went into executive session, nobody was here, but so I'll welcome you tonight to the town's October board meeting. I'd like to, before we go into a presentation, I'd like to make a motion that we add an item to the agenda. I'd like to add petitioners of the floor to the agenda, please. Can I have a second for that?
Second.
Any discussion? Nikki, I'm not sure if it just got left off.
I think it just got off.
No problem, yeah.
It's
So I just want to make sure it's on the agenda. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Okay. I'd also like to make a motion. I'm seeing the agenda for the first time since the one that I received, and I'm seeing two items are missing from the agenda. So I'd like to make a motion to add two resolutions onto the agenda. One for acceptance of a gift from SMI to the police department, and one to resolution that was originally on the agenda to be accept a gift from SMI to the Parks and Recreation Department. So I have a second for that resolution or motion. Okay, no second, so that will not be added on to the agenda. Anybody know what happened?
I believe they were moved till November.
I'm sorry?
I believe they were moved till to November.
Anybody know why?
There's no second. There's why no discussion. There's no second.
Yeah, I mean, they aren't on the agenda. We're going to be on the November agenda. We can talk about that.
No second. No discussion.
I don't think you're the Robert Rules of Order for
I'm
this
just
board.
correcting you.
I don't need any correction. I appreciate your comment, but I can ask all the questions. If nobody wants to answer them, I can still ask the questions. Okay? Thank you. Okay, our first petitioner is Mr. Ken Gardner, Economic Impact Study for the SMI.
Presentation.
Oh, I'm sorry, right, I'm sorry. Presentation by MRB, American Rescue Plan Act, I'm sorry. Mr. Horn.
We're going to do a roll call.
We did that already, you missed it.
You did?
Yep. That's how we started the meeting. We called the meeting to order, had roll call, did the Pledge of Allegiance. You were marked as absent until a couple minutes later. You're here now. Matt, you got a microphone over there?
I do.
You need it?
Is it on? You can turn it on at the bottom. There's a little button on the handle right there.
All right, I'm back.
Perfect.
I was told it. So, off to a good start already. So, many of you are familiar with the American Rescue Plan Act, it's referred to often as federal stimulus package. They used to call it that, and there were like 25 stimulus packages passed, so they're trying to keep track of them with these individual names now. The American Rescue Plan Act is really what local governments were petitioning for all the way through the anticipated financial downturn associated with COVID, and that was direct support to local government. So prior allocations of support were run through the state governments, and the state would put their own spin on the program, whether it was restrictions or whether it was taking additional administrative dollars off the table. And so what local governments were kind of trying for was, hey, we need direct relief now, and we need an easy to spend package. And so the American Rescue Plan aims to do that. It's allocated generally according to population, and so they effectively took this larger package and spread it out according to a formula that the federal government already has in place that has a lot to do with community development block grant allocations, and use your population and some calculations associated with area median income to provide funding to local governments. You likely have, and Ms. Greer can tell you whether you have or not, but you likely have already received your first installment.
We have.
So the payment will be made over 2 funding cycles, the first having been made this summer and the next being made sometime after January 1st of next year. So the funds are starting to be dispersed now. They can effectively be used in 2 buckets. The first being any funds that can be directly tied to COVID, any issues that can be directly tied to COVID. So a lot of local governments treated COVID kind of as a state of emergency and tracked expenses really closely. Those governments were typically counties or state governments who had larger allocations of expenses that might have been associated with COVID, things like PPE, overtime, those kinds of expenses. Those are directly reimbursable under the program. You just have to be able to clearly identify that they were related to COVID and that they were spent during the COVID crisis. There's also funding associated with revenue recovery during the COVID period. And so for the purposes of this calculation, we look at the 2019, effectively what amounts to the 2019 bottom line revenue number for Seneca Falls, and the 2020 bottom line revenue. And if there was a downturn between 19 and 20 in general fund revenue, then you're eligible to recover that. And that's good money, I call it, because that money goes right back into your general fund and can effectively just be used with whatever local spending requirements that you have associated with it. There's a bit more to the calculation that I'll get into with Ms. Greer and her team as we move forward. You got to back out one-time revenues, things like grants that you might have received in 19 or 20 that would throw off the calculation. And the federal government also allows for a certain growth factor. So they presume that your revenue would have grown between 19 and 20. And so we allow for that. But generally, it's that bottom line difference between 19 and 20 when you we identify those funds, isolate them, set them to the side, and you can use them however you like. The rest of the funding is pretty specific around how you can use it. Generally, the most efficient way to use these funds, the carve-outs that are laid out in the federal package, are for infrastructure. Water, sewer, broadband. So if you have water needs or sewer needs, those are, without question, typically fundable under the ARPA program. If you have a broadband initiative that you'd like us to look at, we can draw a line as to whether or not it was eligible. But certainly, any of your water or sewer capital projects are going to be fundable under the Act. Something that's come about, the federal government has right now in place what they call the interim final rule. It's been interim for about 9 months, and so we're waiting for the final rule. But they regularly update the interim final rule. And more recently, they clarified that rule to say that parks are an eligible expense as well. And so if you have increased maintenance responsibilities or you have new facilities that you'd like to add, we can sometimes draw a good line between what's fundable under this program and parks infrastructure. So generally, the approach that we like to take is to do exactly what we did when we were first engaged with you to write grants, and that is sit down and look at those buckets, look at those funding priorities: water, sewer, broadband, parks. And identify those top line priorities across those expenditure categories. And as your staff and you, I can start to elevate and rank those priorities. We look at the funding you have available, and we start to make matches. Once we do that needs assessment, we identify which projects we think are eligible. We have to look at things like, what's the total project cost? So, supervisor or clerk, do you remember order of magnitude what your allocation was?
We received $450,000 50,000, half of the allotment, which was 900,000, I think it was about 450 and change.
So around 900,000. So these projects are going to have to, are only going to be able to absorb $900,000 in ARPA funds, because that's all you have available. So if the total project cost exceeds that, we have to look at where the other funds are going to come from. Typically, that's not much of an issue. We actually have a little time. I'll get to that. But you may want to apply for a CFA, or you may have already applied for a CFA that you'd like to match these funds with. The WEA grants I know are out now. We're working on some of those for you. So there is good reason to take a pause and look at the total funding package and say, what $900,000 isn't enough to cover it? Are we going to be able to obtain the matching funds needed prior to the expiration of these funds?
Matt, I've already had, we'll be working with Bev, Warfel, and Sarah, mostly on the financial part of it.
Sure.
And I've already had Bev compile our COVID-19 related expenses. A lot of those expenses were in the police department, but we've solicited, budgetary items, for the simple things like sanitizers and gloves and masks and so forth and so on. So we have a really good idea, handle on what our COVID-19 labor and material expenses were. And the good news, I think, to date is we don't have to make any hardcore decisions on where the rest of the money goes until 2024, I think.
Correct. So the funds don't have to be committed before 2024. Committed means you're under contract, effectively, it's a capital project. You've made a funding commitment. They don't have to be fully expended until 2026. So we do have time on our side in terms of those things. The other thing that you have on your side is the state government is not allowed to apply any additional restrictions over and above what the local government already has on the books. So typically when you receive a state grant, you might have a prevailing wage requirement or Davis-Bacon wage monitoring, MWB and other regulations that apply to typically the state federal funds. Those do not apply to this unless they're typically applied or unless they're required by another funding source, right? So generally in terms of procurement, you're going to follow your standard procurement rules. Whatever your procurement policy says is going to be good enough for these funds. Record keeping, we do encourage you to A, segregate these funds into a totally separate checking account if you can. And there's a couple reasons for that. The first reason is, unlike any other federal program I've ever worked in, any interest that you generate on these funds, you can keep and you can use for your other projects. Typically, federal funds are deposited in a non-interest bearing account. So make sure that you didn't just go on autopilot and set up a non-interest bearing account, because you'll want to collect interest on these funds. You're able to use that interest. And then secondly, you want to be able to quickly audit these funds to say, all of these expenses were ARPA and were approved and authorized and eligible under the Act. Smaller communities, non-entitlement units they call them, non-entitlement units like the town of Seneca Falls are required only to file one report per year. And before the ink could dry on this presentation, the federal government just extended the date that you'll be required to file your first report to April of next year. Originally, there was an October 31st reporting date, but because they haven't issued that final rule and they don't have the up-to-date reporting guidance available, they've bumped back the compliance date. So in terms of our engagement, what we're going to do next is do those revenue calculations, work with Bev and your team to make sure that the revenue calculation, expenditure calculations are complete. We'll ask the board to take action to move those funds so that you can spend them how you like. We will work with the staff to develop recommendations for the board on other ARPA expenditures. We will help the finance department establish the appropriate record-keeping function to ensure that future reporting and future auditing can be done with ease. And then we'll start tracking expenditures with you and be prepared to submit reports as required. So it's It's a great program. It's certainly what local governments were looking for, and it can be relatively straightforward to spend. So happy to answer any questions.
Matt, the two deadlines, 2024, 2026, at the end of 2024?
December 31st, yes, sir.
December 31st, you said?
And then, so is it reasonable to think that, I know we're not there yet, but the first thing we would do is reimburse ourselves for
Yes.
those COVID expenses?
You bet.
And then see what's done?
You got it. Yeah.
We go into the savings account type of thing, and then, obviously, as everybody knows, we got some major water sewer projects in the hopper already, and some of it's, hopefully, we get some of these grants that we've made application for, but certainly part of it can be used for something like that. And we talked about a meter replacement program, it could be used for something like that, type of thing, the offset cost. So there's a lot of flexibility. The good thing is we don't have to make a decision tonight. Okay, Matt, thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm always around if you guys need anything. Give me a help.
Okay, we had some petitioners tonight. I just want to remind people that try to be respectful to the time. It's a full agenda. This meeting has to be over by 8:08 tonight. I have another commitment, so I ask the petitioners to be mindful of that. Yankee Boston gave 808. Okay, Mr. Gardner, semi-facility economic impact study. Welcome, Mr. Gardner.
Thank you. Let's see. Oh, I've got the green light. That's a good thing. Okay. Yeah, my name is Ken Gardner. I'm the chief economist at the Center for Governmental Research in Rochester. CGR was engaged by Waste Connections in 2016 to assess the economic and fiscal impact of the facility, Seneca Meadows, on Seneca County, particularly the town of Seneca Falls. We were recently asked to revisit those estimates using current data. I've submitted our report to the town board. I'd like to summarize our findings this evening. So first, obviously, Seneca Meadows is an important and stable contributor to the local economy. Total employment is about 70, with total payroll of a little under $5 million. Average annual pay was $66,000 in 2020, which is more than double the average pay in Seneca County. As I reported 5 years ago, Seneca Meadows' impact on the public finances stands out. Between the host community agreement payment and the property tax, Waste Connections paid $3.3 million to the town in 2020, which is over 2/3 of the town's total property tax levy. The school districts received over $300,000 in property tax revenue. Waterloo getting the most at $264,000. Towns other than Seneca Falls received $43,000 in property tax payments in 2020. And Waterloo also benefits from a host community agreement, which paid over $600,000. And in addition, Seneca Falls and Waterloo residents saved about $384,000 through free solid waste disposal. So the tax rate arithmetic on closing Seneca Meadows is straightforward. We assume three things. One is that public services continue at the same level. Second, that the town absorbs the cost of solid waste disposal into the tax rate. And then third, that the taxable property value of the facility is retained. So for the median home value in the town of Seneca Falls, which is $105,900 in the most recent census numbers, the annual tax paid would rise 74%, from just over $1,000 to about $1,800. For the median value home in Waterloo, the median value being $80,700, we estimate that the property tax would rise 58%, from an estimated $264 to about $450. Seneca Meadows' largest impact comes from the host community agreement, recognizing that the town's principal source of revenue is the property tax. Plugging a $3.1 million hole in the budget, which is what the host community agreement brings, would require replacing Seneca Meadows with a property assessed at $322 million. For some comparison purposes, Seneca Meadows is currently assessed at 16. The Del Lago Resort is assessed at $101 million. And Gould's Pumps is assessed at 5.5. So the total for those three assets is $123 million. So again, you need an asset value of $322 million equal to the payment that comes in for with the host community agreement. So I refer you to our report for more detail. I'm happy to take any questions you may have.
Yeah, I got a couple of questions. So who contracted you to refresh this?
As I said at the beginning of my remarks, we were contracted by Waste Connections.
By Seneca Meadows?
By Seneca Meadows, parent company.
And they paid for the study?
They did indeed, yes.
Were you aware that Seneca County and the IDA partnered in 2019 they generated a report here, Fostering the Next Generation of Growth and Economic Development Strategy for Seneca County? Have you reviewed that at all?
I have not seen that report, no.
Okay, well, you know, what came out of that report, one of the major glaring aspects of it, that was conducted and prepared by Fairweather Consulting of New Paltz. And they identified some of the great things that are going on in our county: agritourism, heritage tourism, cultural, food, and agritourism. But on the other hand, the county does face some obstacles. And of course, one of those is odor from the Seneca Meadows landfill was noted. And so in the proposed action setting or section, they talk about establishing industry sector roundtables to address common issues, such as they had concerns. They needed a mechanism to ensure business concerns such as questions regarding the Seneca Meadow are quickly addressed. So although your report, this is just a comment by me, may kind of paint things as rainbows and unicorns, the county report shows major concern amongst most businesses in this county in regards to Seneca Meadows. And this was an independent study. This wasn't paid for by any particular party as Seneca Meadows paid you. So that's all I got. Thank you.
Do you have another copy of that?
It's available online.
Does it talk about in that report the enhancement of green energy throughout the county like it does in the Seneca Falls Development Corporation's economic plan?
I covered the part of the report that I wanted to cover. If you would like to read it, I can send you.
I was just asking you, is that also on that report?
I'll send you a copy if you read it.
So I'll take that as a no, it's not in that report, or yes, it is.
I addressed the issues that I wanted to address.
And Mr. Gardner, you work for the Center on,
Center for Governmental Research. And we're a George Eastman creation.
I think it's the same company that the town hired to do an evaluation of government efficiency, CGR, right?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought.
So if I may respond, no rainbows and unicorns.
Okay,
You know,
thanks, Mr. Gardner.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, our next petitioner is Joelle Murney Karsten, SFDC and Economic Development Concern.
Good evening.
Good evening.
First, I would like to really thank the town of Seneca Falls for putting its best foot forward for our September 24th dedication of our 4 new statues on Mayor Street. It not only received statewide but national attention, and we've received a tremendous amount of praise for a wonderful event. Something like this does not come together by fairies and unicorns. There are many people who contributed to making this dedication event successful, and I would like to thank a few of those people. Chief Peenstra and the Seneca Falls Police Department, obviously, for all that you did with traffic and planning and so forth, and the Highway Department and Jim Peterson, who helped install the statues, was in there putting in the fountain. I think a couple guys might have gone for a swim. Community center employees, certainly town employees, Mike Ferrara, I blow up your phone regularly. Same with Mr. Avery Lori, who also helped with the setup. And certainly Pat Morrell, who I also blew up your phone regularly with as well. SFDC members, all that helped contribute and set up. And our own Greg Zellers, who did everything from, as you know, wears a lot of hats, design programs, logos, websites, even was out there in his kayak, adjusting the lights on Fountain and installing buoys. Seneca Falls School
Joel,
District, yes.
Can I interrupt?
Yes, you can.
Something you probably don't even know about, okay, but we need to thank Joe Tulo in the Water and Sewer Department, who dug the trench connecting the wires from the corner of Ovid Street to the statues, so to save on the electrical contractor's work type of thing. So that was a significant savings on that.
Well, thank you for pointing that out, because
I
no,
know,
I
you
was not
probably
aware of
didn't
that. No,
Okay.
absolutely, thank you. We also had 90 children from the school district come, which took a lot of coordination from administrators and teachers. We need to get a lot of permission slips for that to happen, and we had the brass ensemble and vocal ensemble perform. Molly McKevney Clevin assisted with the event planning. We had a lot of other volunteers who helped with parking and so on. So as seamless as it may have looked, it took a lot of people, and I just want to say that Seneca Falls shone very brightly and a big feather in everybody's cap here. So thank you to everyone for that. Next, I would like to quickly address the continued issues with the culvert. It is my understanding that the grant that was suggested that the town apply for from the SFDC was voted down by the town council, and I do understand some of those concerns. I do want you to know that we are exploring additional options and hope that you will maintain a collaborative mindset and open discussions. Finally, as considerations are made for the upcoming budget, I would like to give you a quick story on what really fired us up at the SFDC and got us on the mission that we're on. In 2017, 2018, when we were in the process of updating the the Strategic Plan for Economic Development, which was over 10 years old, we looked at the Finger Lakes Regional Economic Development Council's report on investments and accomplishments in the Finger Lakes region. So this is 2017, 2018. 92% of the accomplishments and the money were focused in the Rochester region. There was no mention of Seneca Falls. There was very little mention of any of the surrounding towns. It was at that point in 2018 that we decided that we were going to gain attention, that we were going to be a squeaky wheel, and that we were going to gain that attention and investment, and which is why we wrote the first DRI in 2018. And as you know, we wrote it again in 2019. We did not submit the same one. We completely revamped it, and we won $10 million for the town in 2019. In addition, we have secured the summer excursion program through the New York Canal Corporation last summer, the kids activity program for underprivileged youth. Last summer, the fountain and dedication event that gave us a tremendous amount of statewide attention. And then the statue gift and dedication event this year along with the fountain. So all of this is increasing our visibility, our awareness, and giving us a lot of positive press and buzz. And quite frankly, we can't afford to lose the momentum that we currently have. So where are we going from here? Well, between the DRI, which as you know, all of those contracts are going out directly to the large projects from the state. We also have a $600,000 building improvement fund that is coming that we plan to have the local planning committee reseated for. We are already engaged with developers and real estate agents who are attracted by all of this buzz. This is going to encourage the empty storefronts to fill, the apartments above them to become renovated and rented. It is not an overnight process, but we are on the right track. We are constantly networking and developing new relationships and fostering the ones that we have to keep this positive momentum moving forward. And we need to be sure that Seneca Falls keeps getting more and more business friendly. We do sometimes still hear that that is not always the case, which is why we at the SFDC provide a concierge type service. We meet with developers, we give tours, we do research, we provide data to them. We help them navigate zoning and planning processes and help streamline those processes. And while COVID did deter some of this, we are hearing from those developers and real estate agents again, and we need to be ready. when all of this fully starts opening and the GRI starts happening. So we do hope that you will continue to work with us to keep this economic development momentum moving forward. So thank you. Any questions?
Joelle, thank you so much for your leadership as chairperson of that committee. Joelle is in her third and last year as chairperson.
Sixth year.
Which is, pardon?
Second
Elected
term,
term.
6 years.
I'm sorry, you're in charge, but you're done. You're fired, right? After
I'm
this?
fired as a February.
So I want to thank you for your 6 years of leadership. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd also like to comment that the dedication was an absolutely outstanding event. The only fault I could find with it is that, the invitation went out to 50 people, and I understand why, but everybody in this town should have been invited, because it was a moment to be proud to live in Seneca Falls, and not many of us got to share it, unfortunately, because when governors and lieutenant governors and those powers to be show up, they don't like anybody else to be there, I guess.
Well, you are correct. We had 48 hours. We couldn't put it out officially until 48 hours before. And we were limited over there with parking.
Sure.
So we did kind of ask the local funeral home that they might not want to have funerals that morning. And they said, you're right. And I said, by the way, do you think we could park there? So we had very little parking over there, but yes, there were security issues as well. And then we had the students involved. So there was a lot of things at play, which is why it was live streamed and why you can still watch that. And it was sent out by Senator Gillibrand to her email list, which is nationwide, as well as Congress and the Senate. So that is still something that is ongoing.
Thanks, Joelle. Any petitions of the floor?
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. You get mad when your students go like this?
Were you going to yell at me for doing that?
I hope not. So, my name is Barb Reese, and I'm a member of the Waste Management Advisory Committee. And I just wanted to publicly thank this board and Jim Peterson and the Highway Department for the work that you've been doing supporting the New Organics Recycling Program. I don't know if people are aware, but the town now has a food waste drop-off site for town residents. So if you have always wanted to keep your food waste out of the trash, you now can, and the town is supporting that. So as of September 25th, we went live at the new transfer station, official transfer station that's at the Highway Department at 187 Ovid Street. And on Saturday and Sundays from 8 a.m. to 1:45 p.m., we have an attendant on duty, and you can bring your food waste there, and it will be composted, and you can be glad to know that. So thank you very much for your support. I appreciate it, and the Waste Management Committee will keep doing their part to find opportunities to be responsible in our waste management. So thank you very much.
One question. In the beginning, when we started this, I remember I signed up. You're going to have available to buy containers. Is that true? Are they going to be out there?
Yes, people are asking about that. The containers, the price went up when the quantity that we wanted went down, and so we decided it wasn't worth doing it. If we can find a way to do it to bring the price back down for a larger quantity, I know there are several people who are interested in that. But right now, we're not making a purchase.
The other part of that conversation was it's difficult to imagine exactly how we would do that, short of putting a stack of them in Nikki's office. So, not sure whether we should be in the business of selling them and how. But the first thing, if the price is reasonable, we'll find a way to get those out.
And Barb, thank you again, as I always thank you, and this is the beginning of our little contribution to eliminating organics from not only this landfill, but any landfill moving down the road. As we all know, that's the major step. Thank you. Absolutely. Can I have a motion to entertain, or a motion to approve the town regular monthly meeting minutes for September 7, 2021.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Thank you. I'm going to make a motion, we accept the dog control officer's report. September and August is in this current package. Second, thank you. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Thank you. I make a motion that we accept the zoning officer's report for the month of September. Second for that, please.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Thank you. Councilwoman Dyson.
I make a motion we accept the park and recreation minutes for this month.
Second.
Any discussion on that? Miss, anything to add on your end?
No?
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Missy.
Councilman Avery.
I move that we accept the monthly report from the highway department as submitted.
Second.
Mr. Peterson, anything to add?
Yeah, tomorrow we're gonna, start our milling again. I've got 3 roads that we're gonna mill, which will be Daniels, Van Cleef, and Butler. Van Cleef was only gonna be part of it, from Miners to Clinton, because the sidewalk program on the other end isn't finished.
Just about wrapped up.
And then, yeah, and then
You
I.
gonna do Butler this year?
What's that?
You gonna do Butler this year?
Yes.
Oh, great.
And then, next Tuesday, we'll be paving those 3 roads.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Councilman Churchill, assessor, please.
Yeah, I move that we accept the assessor's report as presented.
Second that. Any discussions or any questions for Debbie?
That first item, property searches for the month of September, and then in parentheses, historic preservation letter.
We do that every time Nikki or Melissa asks to send out those letters about, hey, my neighbor put up a fence, that's their fence, show up.
Oh, it will come from you.
Yeah, it's not really, it's for zoning.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Attorney Morale, anything to add other than your normal stuff?
Just the normal stuff that's up, and other things coming up on the agenda.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Avery, water and sewer.
We'll be accepting water and sewer monthly report as presented.
Second that. Mr. Tullo is off today. Anybody have any questions? Councilman Avery and myself meet with our regular committee meetings with Jim and whatever his name is.
Joe.
Jim and Joe. So if you have any questions, we can answer that for you.
I see there's one thing, we had an inspection, number 2, we had an inspection of the water plant and the entire water system. Will we be seeing that report at some point?
I'm sure we can. I said, I'm sure we can.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's something that,
Peter?
I'll pass that on.
Summary or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, the inspection was a standard DOH inspection. So Joe, that's something we don't typically get involved with. Joe handles that, so I assume there's a follow-up that DOH will provide to Joe. I think there was one item that Joe had asked me to provide, just some mapping. So it was a scheduled, it was a regular scheduled inspection. I think it's an annual inspection that DOH.
Yeah, just don't want any.
Traditionally, a copy gets sent to the supervisor. So,
James, I'm sorry.
I believe you'll get a copy, Mike.
Okay, yep, okay. Yeah, when I get my copy, I knew you're right, James. I didn't see you were here, James, I'm sorry.
Okay.
You're covering for Joe?
No.
Oh. When I get that, I will be sure to share that with everybody. Okay, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Thank you. Councilman DeLeus.
Make a motion to accept the report from the board. Town Justice.
I second that. Any discussion? Any questions? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Thank you. I make a motion that we accept the town engineer's report from Dean Alec. Have a second for that, please?
No, you skip my name.
I know. Peter?
I
Did
did
you
it
have
more.
to turn that on yet?
I did. I'm just figuring it out. The engineer, so.
Could you have an engineering degree?
I did have one thing to add, and I'll talk in the report. Matt mentioned the WIA grants, so we'll work with MRB on two WIA applications, one for the equalization tank, one for Kingdom Road. Kingdom Road, we talked about secret later tonight, but as part of that process, there's a bond resolution. Last year, the town completed that process for the equalization tank, bond resolutions and seeker. We do need to schedule a public hearing for the bond resolution for Kingdom Road. That's not in my report, but after discussions with MRB today, and looking ahead to the next town board meetings and when the application is due. So basically, I requested the town pass a resolution to advertise and schedule a public hearing, looking at the November town board meeting. It does need to be advertised. It needs to be in the paper between 10 and 20 days in advance of the public hearing.
We're gonna have a date before we leave, and I'm hoping it's November 3rd, the Wednesday, I'm hoping.
Correct.
But we'll have a date for you, and we'll get that public.
Okay, so I'll have typically the advertisement will include all the specifics of the project that are required for the bond resolution. I'll send that in advance to Nikki, and I'll give her dates when it needs to show up and when it needs to be posted.
Are you gonna be there tomorrow?
Yeah, on 10 a.m., yes, so I can give you more detail on that one. Okay.
And just so people know that some of the local flooding back in mid-August, we are working on it, especially the Miller Street area. We're working on some roto-rooting basically to try to get some roots out of some of the drainage pipes that are causing some problems, and we're still looking at a couple of options for one of the addresses on Miller Street. And we'll be back, we'll share with the board the cost. It's not going to be cheap, but we'll share the cost and make a decision. And we're also working on some long-term plans for that part of the town, diverting water from Ridge Street, Chapel Street, Chestnut Street, Oak Street into a different direction versus coming down through people's houses on Miller Street. Okay, so we're working. Right? Okay. Thank you, Peter. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Thank you. Councilman DeLeas, public safety.
Make a motion to accept the report on public safety.
Second.
Any questions? Anything to add? Chief Peenstra?
I'd just like to point out that the police department was recently accepted funds from the New York State Senate through the Institute of Police and Mental Health Community Collaboration on behalf of New York State Mental Health, where now they have second round of funding. They've included the police department in costs for iPads for mental health. So now we have 3 of those iPads and 3 different patrol cars on a shift. Before we only had 1 that we purchased. We purchased the iPad, we purchased the internet service. Now the state senate funds all of those for us. So we have 3 of those with everything completely paid for with that, and that's a great service for our community. Secondly, we're going to be having a drug take-back day, October 23rd, between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. at Kinney Drugs at 2085 Routes 5 and 20. We will be there collecting any kind of prescription medications, non-liquids, needles, or anything like that. I also want to remind people that we do have a drug drop box in our lobby that can be utilized 24/7. So you can't make it to that. We also have that drug take back if we're closed, if our business hours if it's past our business hours. Hit the button on the side of the building, the police officer will meet you at the front door. They'll let you in the lobby and you can dump those prescription medications at any given time.
Still, would you repeat the hours on the 23rd?
10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Kinney Drugs, 2085 Routes 5 and 20.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Chief. Any other questions? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Thank you. I make a motion that we accept the MRB grant writing services for the month of September. Have a second, please.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions for Matt?
Oh, just a question. We've lost Emily. She's moved.
Yeah, she's working in her own firm, actually. So,
Where is she working?
She's up on her own. Good for her.
yeah, good for her, tough for us. But we're just
We're gonna get, not that you're not doing a fine job.
Rhonda Justino, who is, Rhonda, who Visitor Center Director, is basically taking Emily's role at MRB and taking care of the needs of the town of Seneca Falls. Okay. And, we have a collaborative meeting with MRB and our engineers and our bonding people tomorrow morning to all be on the same, we've met numerous times, we'll be on the same page for the WIA grants, trying to get money for the additional funds for the equalization tank and the Kingdom Road sewer pump station.
Thank you.
Okay, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Thank you. Matt, you might want to tell Rhonda or yourself, Emily used to bring me a cup of coffee, all right?
done. Right, you got it.
Just a little side note, no big deal. No big deal. Councilman Avery.
I move that we accept the monthly report for the Seneca Falls Development Corporation as submitted.
I second that. Joel was here and went over a lot of things, but if anybody have any questions or concerns, Doug can answer them or myself.
Just one more thing about the statue is that there are always people there. And they're not people, I don't know everybody, but they're not people I recognize. I mean, there's just always people at those statues. So,
There's people there in the morning taking pictures.
yeah. So, hopefully it will be an ongoing thing, but at least for now, this generated a heck of a response. Super Controller's got her hand up.
I know that the new statues that were installed are supposed to be moved to People's Park, but
I'm sorry, say it again?
The new permanent home is in People's Park.
right, but are they going to move maintaining at Stanton there as well?
They're going to be moved when that project is done out back in People's Park, which is part of the DRI, which 2-3 years, I'm not sure. And then Generations Bank has, that's their property, and they have plans for that site. They've already petitioned or purchased a Liberty Bell type of thing to commemorate women's rights movement, so that site will turn over to Generations Bank.
But her question was, are they going to move the other three windows?
Oh.
I've not heard anything.
No, I don't think there's any plan to do that. No, I'm sorry.
So they won't be kept together? It's
No.
what it's on.
Again, that's not the plan at this point. The new statues would have gone right out here, except that the DRI work that's going to happen there is going to be so disruptive that it was a better plan to put them where they are temporarily. But they're not really related to the other statues at all. So it is nice to have them together, but that's not what they're about.
Okay. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any other committee reports? Okay, I'd like to give some, what I'll call the supervisors' updates and reports. Very proud, as you've noticed. Hopefully you have noticed, and it's in your neighborhood. We're 3/4 of the way done with the street light project, converting the town completely to LED. This took a great deal of time and effort at no cost to the taxpayers of Seneca Falls. It's been about a 9-month ordeal. Anytime you work with New York State Gas and Electric, nothing is ever easy. I want to thank MRB and MRB and Matt for helping me and guiding me and providing me some suggestions at no charge to the town, all pro bono. If you don't know, the town pays $180,000 a year in electricity for streetlights. The LED lights, when they're all implemented and complete, projected savings is 35 to 40% in electricity, which would be a savings of anywhere from $65,000 to $72,000 per year for the taxpayers of Seneca Falls. And on top of the savings, if you've noticed, if you had a street light out in front of your house, there was no chance in creation that New York State Gas and Electric was going to come out and fix it. That was not their priority anymore. So with this complete project going on, the whole town will have working street lights at a significant savings for the town. So, been working with the Canal Corporation and an engineer that I've built a relationship. Last week, the Canal Corporation was here in town for a day and a half, and they cleaned up the area around the mouth of the culvert in Benton Creek. You can go into the culvert, that's not theirs, they claim, but they did do some cleanup in Benton Creek. At the statue dedication, Brian Stratton, who is the chairperson of the Canal Corporation, and Senator Helming, who were both here, talked to me after and were very confused. They questioned our application to the Bridge New York grant that would have been used to fix the culvert. As I mentioned before, they were strong supporters of the grant, and they were wondering what happened, type of thing. And I informed them that the board decided not to make application for the grant because the majority of the board felt that the culvert is not the town of Seneca Falls and it's the Canal Corporation's responsibility. Unfortunately, that grant is not available for, it's a every 2 year grant, so that won't be available for another 2 years. Fountain update, the fountain was here with a collaborative effort from Parks and Recreation, Aaron Pasalacqua, James, people from Highway Department, including Jim. We got the fountain in the water, moved it around, got it where it was supposed to be. Greg was a great help also. The fountain was turned off on Sunday night. It was the last night it was on. It's still in the water. We plan on taking the fountain out Thursday. The generator that ran the pump will go back to Canal Corporation. The pump is ours. We'll be storing the pump in the cinder block house on 130 Ovid Street on South Street, the corner of South and Bridge. And then when we get to the tentative budget, I have a budget line item in there that a decision will be made between now and when the preliminary budget comes out. But that's the end of the fountain as of right now. Okay. And last but not least, I was notified today from the county level that they found out Seneca Falls was listed as one of the top 10 affordable places to live in this country. This is something conducted by Realtor.com, and we were number 10 out of the top 10. Only New York State town that got the distinction. Most of the towns were from the Midwest, but I think that's a kind of a neat thing that we're considered one of the top 10 affordable towns throughout the country. Okay. Make a motion that we accept the communications for the month of September. There are 3 of them. A second, please. Second. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Old business. Counselor.
So 115 Fall Street, I've been in touch with the attorney for the buyers, and things are progressing. Getting the title work being updated, and so we should have that be completed hopefully before the next town board meeting.
So is it possible I can get a drop dead date or not possible?
Well, I'm shooting for the next board meeting.
Okay.
Okay. And then,
no. And then any place with Seneca Meadows?
So with that, otherwise I've been working with David Howe to get together some, we talked about ground rules for alternative dispute resolution that is required in our host community agreement. Earlier this month, Mr. Howe had his appellate division argument for the town with regarding to our parking law, but I was able to get in touch with him towards the end of the month here. We should have something together, and I'll be in touch with our committee that's been leading that, and so we should have something together here within the next couple of weeks.
Okay. Any questions for Pat? Thank you, sir. Steve, security cameras, Veterans Bridge?
I've met with the highway superintendent, plus really the former highway superintendent, and we've kind of come to the conclusion that really fencing off the areas that they paint would be a much better solution and probably less costly. I took some photos and took some measurements and turned it over to highway superintendent. And you got anything to add, Tim?
Yeah, I'm just waiting for some estimates to come back on that.
So we would put it on our property down there, type of thing?
Yeah, I guess it'd be our property up there on that. Yeah, it
Because
would be our property because we own that bridge. Yes, so it would be on our.
So I mean, 10 feet from the canal, 10 feet in is basically the red line is called, and that's not our property. You understand that, right?
Not really, but.
Well, that's, New York State Canal Corporation owns that property.
Okay.
That's on all waterways. I mean, that's just that's the way that thing. So on the canal system. So that's something you need to check out, and before you can start throwing the fence up.
Yeah, I've got the contact for Canal Corp. I'll give them a buzz. And
Before these plans go anywhere, please send them to me.
yes.
Okay. I just want to be part of that whole deal.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is there Constantino right over the top of it?
Only for you.
It doesn't,
Like,
doesn't a fence just present a more interesting challenge for whoever's
Well, I mean, if you can't
sort of razor wire?
they'd have to work awful hard if you put a chain link fence up there to get to the areas that they're currently painting. Could they destroy the fence? Yeah, I suppose they got bolt cutters. But again, you put security cameras in, and you're probably just going to be taking, you're going to get some video of some people at night with hoods on. And
So the game plan would have cut off the Ludovico Trail?
the damage is done. No.
No.
Up underneath the bridge, I probably took out a photo, where if anybody's been down there recently, there's pretty.
I was down there with a can of spray paint.
Pretty considerable limestone riprap that goes up there. So there would be a fence pretty much at the top that would extend up to right underneath the bridge. And then again around the column along the canal.
Okay.
That's the idea.
was looking at. But
Yeah, we can get some estimates and some drawings and go from there.
All right, thank you.
But I also wanted to say this, because I drove down there to take the measurements and the photos, and when I went down, I noticed, we have that one picture board that kind of explains the history of the old river, back in Stone Age and such, right? The 4 or 5 pictures there. Well, there's already graffiti on the plexiglass pictures. So, if you start putting cameras up, where does it end? You need one on every tree in town.
Okay. Last item on our new business, we talked about mandatory vaccinations for all town employees and weekly testing. We had kind of a agreement to move forward. I did some more work on it. I checked out testing availability, and the county is currently testing 3 times a week at no charge type of thing. So there's a resolution for you. The town board authorizes mandatory employee COVID-19 vaccination and/or testing requirements Whereas the town board is very concerned about the health and safety of all their employees and overall well-being of the general public. Whereas COVID-19 vaccinations have proven to be very effective in stopping the spread of the virus, or at a minimum reducing greatly the seriousness of the virus. Whereas effective November 1st, 2021, all town of Seneca Falls employees will be required to have either of the first Janssen Johnson, first for Pfizer or Moderna, and the second dose of the Pfizer or Moderna by December 6th. Whereas proof is completed in current COVID-19 vaccination, including any booster shots as recommended by the FDA or CDC, will be required of all employees unless a reasonable accommodation for medical, pregnancy, or religious reasons is approved as required by law. Unvaccinated employees will be required to be tested on a weekly basis starting November 1st, 2021. Whereas COVID-19 test is available 3 times per week at the county health department at no charge, the employee will be allowed to be tested during their normal workday schedule or at their convenience. And whereas acceptable proof of vaccination is limited to complete copy of the employee's New York State Accessor Pass or Accessor Pass Plus or other official documentation authorized by a government authority of competent jurisdiction or medical records signed by a licensed healthcare provider indicating vaccine name and dates of the administration and or provide weekly test results to the town supervisor's office on or before November 1st for vaccinations and immediately share test results when the results are made available. And therefore be it resolved that the Seneca Falls Town Board by majority strongly supports this policy and strongly encourages all town employees to be vaccinated if possible based on the recommendations of the FDA, CDC, Surgeon General, and the Seneca County Health Department. Can I have a second for that?
Second.
Discussion.
Yes. First and foremost, 4 of these whereas clauses should be, by my estimation, the resolve clauses. And the bottom resolve clause ought to just be struck. In other words, the first 2 are really the whereas the town board is concerned, whereas COVID-19 vaccination, yada, yada, yada. And then the first whereas, resolve that effective November 1st, all town of Seneca Falls employees will be required. That's a resolve, that's not a whereas. The next whereas, further resolve, proof of completed vaccination. Third resolve, whereas COVID testing is available, yada, yada, yada. And then the last one, whereas acceptable proof of vaccination is one. To me, those are the resolve clauses, the bottom resolve.
Would you like to make an amendment to that?
I'd like to amend it.
Please do, because again, in moving forward, I appreciate the help because I do this stuff on my own.
Okay.
And any other, resolutions that attorneys don't do, I'll be more than happy to pass those your way so you
Well, I mean, if
can.
that makes sense.
No, absolutely.
Now that's, okay, so I'd like to offer that amendment. But also to me, the employee would be allowed to get testing during normal work. No, I think they should get it on their own time.
Under the advice of our employment and attorney, they highly do not recommend it.
And why is that?
Because you're imposing a policy and you're imposing an undue restriction on them.
Well, mostly, I look at it this way, and then, if so they see it as a legal issue? I mean, because the state, right, just mandated that every health worker had to have a vaccine or they lose their job, and many of them did. This doesn't even come close to that.
No, but again, under the advice of attorney, Steve, I'm not an attorney.
I just see it as an opportunity. I mean, some folks are great. I get an hour off from work.
Won't be an hour.
Well, who's going to keep track of all that?
They're supervisors.
Yeah?
Absolutely.
Well, I'd like to make it that they do it, after hours. There's time to do that. They have.
The availability of testing is not after hours. There's only one day in the county testing that's from, I believe, in the time frame that ends at 5 o'clock. Not all of our employees are out of work by 5 o'clock, or thereabouts. And certainly the police department has rotating shifts, obviously, so that would hinder their ability to get that.
I think the county actually is like 9 to noon. I think it's a morning for those 3 days, Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
I had one few weeks ago.
I've been there.
It was after.
I think they expanded it, yeah, but I'm not 100% sure.
I know it's limited.
Yeah.
All right, well, I'll make the first amendment that the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6 whereas clause, we changed the resolve clauses, the bottom resolve.
Third,
clause-
fourth, I'm sorry, whereas effective November 1st?
Correct, that's the first.
Okay.
Resolve that. Effective
Resolve that.
November 1st, further resolve, further resolve, further resolve.
Okay.
The bottom one be struck. I'll make that amendment.
The bottom one's being taken off completely.
Yeah, you don't need the bottom resolve if you change the other order resolve.
And I second that amendment. Any discussion? All,
Real quickly, what if the employee is off that given time? That's their day off on a testing time, or they are actually not working during that testing time? How are we going to handle that?
at their own convenience.
You want to keep the jacket?
Yeah, the bottom line here is that they have to produce that each week in order to come to work. And what if they don't come to work? It doesn't say anything about that. They won't be compensated, correct? In other words, if they don't, it doesn't tell what happens if they don't produce the proof of testing. What happens?
Well, when the policy goes out to the employees, which I'm working on, it'll be outlined what the consequences are as far as, again, the guidelines of labor employment law type of thing. So it could result in termination. The language would be failure to comply will result in suspension and/or termination.
You don't think that needs to be in here?
Not according to the attorney.
That would be, there are consequences for not coming to work, period.
So it's a resolution without any teeth. And
The resolution deals with the fact that the town is in favor of mandatory vaccination or testing. The policy will deal with the procedures and how the employee will need, what the employee will need to do, and the consequences of what
they go hand in hand. I mean, what's the point of passing?
Again, Steve, you know, again, I am not an attorney. I seek out advice from an attorney, like I seek out advice from an engineer, and I do what they tell me to do.
Okay.
I'm a rinky-dink, part-time town supervisor.
Okay, calm down.
I'm no reason to calm down. I keep saying it. I keep saying it.
Well, but this says,
Ultimately, we have a employee handbook that addresses when people don't show up to work. And failure to comply with policy would just land you right into the employee handbook, and there's a whole graduated system.
this doesn't say that if you don't, if you do not get
It's
tested.
imposing a requirement in order for you to work for the town. So if you can't work for the town, then you end up being dealt with.
So you're saying
under the
it's
handbook,
applied here.
or under the,
What if you
the
test positive?
negotiated
It doesn't
union
speak to what
contract.
happens when you test positive. You're either, do you get paid? Are you home for 15 days getting
Again,
paid?
yes, you do. Based on state law, we can't write a policy to override executive orders.
I can't believe that. I mean, they fired people who didn't get a vaccine, and we're saying, hey, we'll pay you if you don't get a vaccine and you get COVID.
If you're test positive and the Seneca County Health Department says you have to quarantine, the employer has to pay.
But yet the state, again, I reiterate, the state can just fire people for not getting a vaccine. But we have to pay them if they don't get a vaccine and they get COVID. That makes no sense. That makes no sense legally.
Well, legally, the state writes the rules. I mean, we don't have the same playbook
Well, I'd
that
like
they
to
do.
see that rule when it comes to
I mean,
COVID
that's-
vaccines and COVID compensation.
That would apply to lots of different scenarios, whether it's this or wherever.
I would say we should be able to do the same thing that the state does. If you don't get vaccine, if you don't get vaccinated by November 1st,
Yeah, but that termination order from the state, that's for specific
For healthcare
areas of
workers.
employment, healthcare.
I understand.
You don't have anybody employed in healthcare.
I understand, but there's still people who are employed, so employment law should apply. It's no different for healthcare workers than it is for any other worker. If we're saying you can't do it because of some state regulation, what's the
The
regulation?
state is made it different.
Does the regulation?
COVID-19 state regulations. Okay. Again, Steve, I can.
Says that you can
You
fire
can Google it,
healthcare
right,
workers
you can
will be
Google
out.
it, it'll tell you, Google it if you want,
Yeah.
but I can certainly put
But
you,
healthcare workers are taking an oath to You're there for them, whether they have COVID, they have cancer, they have AIDS, you're there to assist them, not give them, you don't want to give them the COVID.
I will not support this because it has no teeth, and essentially all it effectively does is gives these people who decide not to get vaccinated an hour or an hour and a half off of paid, and I'm not.
Are you still making the motion to amend it?
Well, yeah, well, that is already out there.
Why, we haven't voted on
Or
it.
even as amended, I'm not gonna.
We haven't voted on the amendment.
That's correct.
Any further discussion on the amendment? All in favor of the amendment to the resolution, please say aye.
Aye.
We have a motion and a second on the resolution. Any further discussion?
Was it
Unanimous? Yes. On the amendment part, okay?
Yeah.
Now we're voting on the resolution. Okay? All in favor of the resolution?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Opposed. Let's carry 4-1. Okay, in your packets, you received the tentative budget for 2022. No? What did I forget now? Approval of special events. Thank you. Make a motion to approve the special events coming up. I think we just got one today.
There's a whole packet.
Yeah. Well, can I have a second for those, please?
Second.
Thank you. Any questions for Missy on the quite a large number of special events coming up?
We haven't seen it.
You haven't seen them? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. We have Women's March of 21. That's old, right, Missy?
It's already happened.
That's gone. Wonderful Life Festival. December 8th to the 12th.
That's 1 day longer.
Correct. Seneca Falls Historical Society.
I can,
1 day longer on that.
It's a Wonderful Life, it's
Yes.
Thursday through Sunday.
I thought you said a 1 day. It is 1 day longer, yeah.
Seneca Falls Historical Society,
29.
October 30th, right?
Yep.
2 to 4, and I'm not sure what it is, though, Mr.
Train ride.
Oh, okay. And let's see, what else? Wonderful Life 5K run on Saturday, the, whatever that is, the 11th. Seneca Falls Democrat Committee for October 23rd to use People's Park. And a Halloween walk in the park, October 30th, 1:30, 3 o'clock at the People's Park. Halloween walk that we used to do on downtown, and
Yeah.
with COVID, we moved it out, and people come out and hand candy out, et cetera, et cetera. Okay,
That's it.
that's it.
Motion to accept.
Okay?
Mike?
Yes?
Hey, I just want to thank you guys for finally putting the speed limit signs on my road. I really appreciate it.
Sign, what kind of signs did you
The
have?
speed limit signs on George Road.
Oh,
Yeah.
it took a while, but you're
Yeah,
welcome.
it's there. I'm thankful. Thank you very much to everybody.
Thank you. Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay. So, tentative budget. I just want to point out some things, so you want to get your pencil and pen or paper out. First of all, everybody needs to understand it's a tentative budget, okay? Nothing more than a collection of each department's budget, the general fund, the supervisor's office, the town clerk's office, assessor's office, water, sewer, et cetera, okay? Nothing has been done with the request. It's gone into the budget, and that's why we call it a tentative budget. Now the real work will start starting October 7th, which is Thursday night, is our first budget workshop.
What time is that starting on?
It's 5:30, October 7th, at the town offices, okay? The second budget workshop is scheduled for October 25th at 5:30. The third one is scheduled for October 28th at 5:30, all at the town office. Town board members, I suggest you do your homework over the next couple of days to start looking at the budget very closely and ask any questions based on the people who are coming in and et cetera. We cannot meet on November 2nd because of Election Day. We have to meet for a public hearing to accept the preliminary budget by November 4th. I'm proposing that we meet on Wednesday the 3rd. Does anybody have a problem for having the public hearing for the preliminary budget on November 3rd and our regular board meeting for November 3rd? Anybody have any problems with that? Okay, so Nikki, November 3rd, 6 o'clock, it'll be located here at the community center. Okay? Okay. Then we adopt the preliminary budget, and then based on the public hearing, if more changes have to be made, then they have to be made before November 20th. Nikki is required to submit the adopted 2022 budget to the county clerk by November 20th. Okay? So there's a lot of work that needs to be done between now and the preliminary budget. Just some things in it. Don't everybody go crazy. It's a preliminary budget, or a tentative budget. In the budget, there is a 3% raise for all non-union employees in the budget. That'll be a decision you'll have to make if you want to take it out. The budget uses $1.1 million in landfill revenue, down from 1.4. The budget committee worked up different scenarios over a long period of time, presented those scenarios to the town board. It was decided at that point that the town board majority wanted to see the tentative budget first, then make decisions on spending, and then make decisions on how to fund it. Okay? But at the current point, there's $1.1 million in landfill revenue in the operating budget. There's $330,000 being used from taxpayer reserve fund, and another $110,000 from unexpended fund balance. Okay, which basically is our savings account. Okay? Another fact, in this current budget, expenditures are up 4%. Again, everybody just relax, take a breath. The tentative budget currently represents a 15% increase in the tax rate and exceeds the tax cap rate limit for 2022 by $490,000 and $490,752. Okay, so obviously a lot of work's got to be done there. Later on in our new business, there's a resolution to establish a public hearing for us to exceed the tax cap limit. We do that on a regular every year, just in case, but you have to have a public hearing to even pass that. Doesn't mean we're going to go over it. It just means that it's something that if we have to, we have that ability. Okay? I have to let the state know what our intentions are after the preliminary budget has been adopted. Okay, some line items. Again, we don't go crazy. On page 2, line item A1220101. There's a line item for a town manager in there for the tune of $110,000. On page 3, line number A1355.416. There's a $200,000 item in there for reevaluation that the board passed to do starting next year. On page 5, under line item 1620.201, I've added $35,000 to that line item for the cinder block building on South Street and Bridge Street to replace the overhead door, replace the main entrance door, add heat to it, and paint it. And then it becomes a functional storage area for Parks and Recreation in the wintertime, the police department in the wintertime, to refurbish tables and chairs for Parks and Recreation. Highway probably wouldn't need to use it, but Parks and Recreation especially would be a major thing. There's no heat in the building. We've gutted that, if you remember, all through town employees. And so basically the building's empty, the door is not safe, the overhead door is not functional. So just, again, this is kind of the budget. And the building looks like crap from the outside. Page 8, item number 3620.100. There's an item number there. The code enforcement officer will talk to you about his request to go from part-time to full-time. It's about a $20,000 increase. Page 10, Parks, A7110.203. That's a $70,000 line item for kids' territory to be paved and for new upgrade equipment, playground equipment at Bridgeport Playground on Lower Lake Road. Page 11, Culture and Recreation. Line item A7989.201. Line item for $33,400. That is to bring electricity permanently to the fountain. Page 13, cemeteries. Line item A8810.407. $40,000 line item, that's up from $32,000. The Cemetery Commission has asked for an $8,000 increase to work on refurbishing effects at some of the residual cemeteries, not Russville, and for further stone replacement. And page 14, I'm sorry, page 11, page 14. It's page 14, I think. Celebrations. A7550.400. Wonderful Life Committee is requesting $10,000 in the budget, but now the line item is $5,000. We did not change that to $10,000, okay, because I got that request today.
That is page 11.
It is page 11, okay, thank you.
So, 755401?
7550.400. Wonderful Life Committee, Wonderful Life. It's currently a $5,000 line item. They requested $10,000.
That's the museum.
That's the museum.
That's the museum.
Okay, so that's the major things that we should really pay close attention to. I want to bring them out to your attention. When we start meeting with department heads, their instruction would be, we're not talking about the normal expenses, but if there's things above and beyond that are not normal, those are some of the things that you should be sharing with the town board as far as we moving forward.
Mike, you said the last one, the Wonderful Life was 5,000, or is it the Wonderful Life Museum?
It's the museum.
What's the museum line item? How much?
7,000?
7,000?
Yeah.
Okay. This was the committee. Fran Carcillo can charge you what? The committee?
He's the museum.
He's the museum. So the letter came from Fran, so I'm assuming it's Fran. I thought it was 5,000.
So he's requesting instead of 7, he wants 10.
Okay. Any questions?
Yeah, I'd like to commend the police department's news report. I love that. You have everything broke down by each thing in the department on why he wants it or why he doesn't, or why he keep it the same. I think every department should do that.
It'd be like a really good suggestion in March. Fred?
Is there any chance the volunteers on the budget committee can speak to what you just presented?
What purpose?
Well, earlier this evening, we had a paid consultant from SMI saying our taxes are gonna go up 74%. You're saying worst case scenario right now, 15%.
Tax rate.
That's a big difference. And then they're saying Waterloo's going up 58%. Earlier today, or maybe it was yesterday, Waterloo county taxes are being held. I think the other thing we should share is, yes, we're gonna use $1.1 million, $300,000. So that's first year. Second year, third year, weaning ourselves off that landfill revenue. I think that needs to come out publicly as well. As a volunteer along with Sue Porter, we assisted you, Bev, Sarah, free of charge. We were not paid consultants, other than I did buy your coffee. I would definitely share with the public this evening, based on where I sit, little to no tax increase for 2022. I think we have to take out political grandstanding.
We did a lot of scenarios, and we presented that to the board, the different
I
scenarios.
understand that. I think you've done a good job saying this is tentative,
Right.
it's not preliminary. But tomorrow, it would come out 74% per SMI, 15% per Mike. I think it should come out saying little to no tax increase with a 3 or 4 year.
I don't know the answer to that at this point in time.
I just
Hopefully
think
the preliminary budget.
it's just sharing as a volunteer.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Okay. We already did, so we're all good, November 3rd for the next town board meeting and the public hearing for preliminary budget. Everybody knows the budget workshops. Any questions there? Okay. Can I have a motion to accept the resignation of Eileen Schmidt as court clerk effective September 24th, please? Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Thank you for all her service.
I'm sorry?
Thank you for all of her service. She was a good asset.
Yes, thank you, Eileen, for your years of service to the town of Seneca Falls. Thank you. Make a motion to fill the court clerk position vacated by Eileen Schmidt to a part-time position not to exceed 20 to 25 hours per week. Can I have a second for that, please?
Second.
Mike, how many hours did Elaine work? I mean,
Listed in the budget as 30, but she worked a lot of times more than 30 hours a week.
thank you.
Any questions or discussion or anything like that?
Well, given the changes to the operation of the court, where they're doing arraignments down at the law enforcement center, we have 2 clerks, right, in the absence of Eileen's resignation. Is filling this position a real requirement?
Yes. The state is very, 3 people with all kinds of changes. Of course, you can ask Stu on.
Well, Chief Kelly is here in attendance, and so he can certainly help answer your question. Steve, I don't know the answer to that.
Steve, you talked to Doug and I, you can explain better than I can, I guess.
Well, prior to Eileen's resignation, we had discussion regarding the duties that she was performing, which are forever increasing regarding the different law changes. We've had requests that due to the storage issues, the court has to have secure records, and we were requested, and she was assisting in working on the expungement of the backlog of court records which go back decades. That was a request that needed to be filled because we only have limited storage space. That requires extra work in the normal day-to-day business of setting court calendars and making the legal process that the regular clerks do. In addition to that, the new law passages where there's mandatory expungement of records. Each one of those records has to have approval, there's dates, they got to go through these boxes individually. And to make the complicated matter more complicated was that due to the fire of the previous court, those records weren't put together in an organized fashion, a lot of them. So each box has got to be gone through individually. The individual records got to be sent to the 7th Judicial District to have approval to be expunged. So it's a time-consuming process. The law changes regarding, for example, suspensions on failure to pay fines. They have to be gone through. We have drawers and drawers and drawers of records to be done there. It's just, prior to her resigning, we were making the issue that the three of them had, basically, they don't have enough time in the day to do all the jobs they had to do. Now that she resigned, which for her personal reasons and for personal benefit, the reason she left, she went to another court job that had quite a substantial pay increase, just for the record. Without her, all those other duties that she would do, plus the office management duties that she performed, have to be split up between the other two clerks, and they really just don't have enough time in the day to do that.
The other reason I ask is Waterloo has a town court and they have a village court, but they only have one clerk per court. So that they have two judges. Yeah, they have two judges. We have two judges, so that's a net 2 judges, 2 clerks in Waterloo. Here we have 2 judges and 3 clerks. I'm just, if we're trying to tighten our belt, I mean, are there other ways to become more efficient than just, it sounds like a lot of busy work, some of it certainly sounds like it requires a lot of skill, but it sounds like a lot of that records management. Are there any opportunities to, pull in interns or anything to help catch up on some of that stuff?
The advantage we had with Eileen there was that she was also a justice and she was a trained clerk.
Yep.
Her duties were well above and beyond just, she was as much of a full-time clerk as the other ones as far as her duties were there. Without her, the workload is just too much on the other two. We have 55 cases a night, 55, 65 cases. A couple weeks ago, for example, we were there 12 hours in court. With the COVID backup, it's impossible to keep up almost. So we had reasons. We've established job duties that she did. We have lists. And our proposal was to meet with the board members, present what her duties were, why we need the extra help.
Could we table this until we get that list and see what her duties are and then discuss it?
Yes, and that was at the workshop meeting, we were bringing those statistics we gathered there to present to the full board.
And our caseload of the state, our town, probably the biggest in the area.
And that's the other thing. To compare us with the other towns, we have a much larger calendar. I mean, we're the busiest, other than the county court, we're the busiest jurisdiction in the county.
So if I can just for a second piggyback off of that, if you're going to compare it to Waterloo, I would encourage you to reach out not only to the district attorney's office, but to Waterloo as well, because individuals that are coming into Cap Court, et cetera, they're backlogged. So they're not receiving notifications, et cetera, ahead of time. So I would do your research as far as reaching out to these specific agencies first before making that decision.
Any further discussion? Okay. All in favor of refilling the position vacated by the resignation of Eileen Schmidt for between 20 and 25 hours per week, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 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 Okay, so we have 2 ayes. Councilman Velez? and Councilman Ferrara.
I wanted to table it
And-
until we could see her job description. It, not totally get rid of it, but I want to see what her job description, details are, and see if it's something we can.
I'm sure you can make an appointment with Mr. Kelly, or
Well, he said
Judge
he was
Kelly,
gonna
or,
bring him on Thursday.
yeah, Judge Lafler, and, I'm sure they.
I mean, you can bring him on Thursday, right, Steve?
We had a vote, we had a motion, we had a vote, second, we had a vote, 2 yeas, 3 noes. The noes were, Councilman Velez, Councilwoman Dyson.
No. I was yes.
I'm sorry, Councilman Churchill.
Churchill.
I'm sorry, Councilwoman
Dyson.
and Councilman. So the motion is defeated 2-3.
We can always reinstate.
But, at this table, it's not a dead issue. We would like to hear more when you come in for your budget hearing.
We'll bring our documentation in.
That would be great, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. I just want to get back. Board of Assessment Review Member?
Yeah, that's next.
Do we have anything in here on that?
No, but it's Jean Gilroy.
Okay. Who is it?
Jean Gilroy, it's a reappointment for a five-year appointment.
Is there any paperwork on it? So we, that needs a board action? Nikki, that needs board action?
Yes, it does, reappointment.
Okay, so I guess I can make a motion to reappoint Jean Gilroy to the Board of Assessment as a Board of Assessment review member. That's a 5-year appointment?
Yes.
For 5-year appointment. Can I have a second for that, please?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Jean, congratulations and condolences. I have a resolution here from Parks and Recreation, transfer of funds from the sale of floating dock at Kids Territory flooring. Whereas the flooring at Kids Territory is in great disrepair, be it resolved that the Seneca Falls Board approves the transfer of funds from the sale of the floating docks in the amount of $6,395 to replacing with an epoxy floor the bathroom and concession stand at Kids Territory in the amount of $6,250. Second for that, please.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion or questions to Missy? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. I have a motion here to declare the following items surplus at the Seneca Falls Police Department. 2017 Ford Utility, 85,841 miles. 4 used iPhone XR 10s. Monies received from the sale of this vehicle through Actions International will go to the Police Department's surplus vehicle and equipment fund. Have a second for that, please.
Second.
Any discussion or questions?
There should be options in there.
Correct.
I'm just reading it.
Yeah, that's correct, my fault.
I thought maybe I thought maybe the police department had their own little thing. Yeah. Okay. I have a resolution. Replace secretary. That's on there twice.
Yeah, I took it off.
Okay.
I took one off, but that one is still on.
Okay. So,
We didn't vote on this.
oh, I'm sorry. All in favor, please say aye. Thank you. Anybody opposed? So, do we have a resolution from Peter, don't we?
Is that it?
Yes, I think it's just the
That is the recommendation.
Just a recommendation. Okay, thank you. So, replace secondary clarifier skirt at the wastewater treatment plant. Peter has sent all of you that information. The materials are here, type of thing. So we need a motion to appoint or hire the contractor, Streeter Associates, for the clarifier installation for this year, $27,000. for next year, $27,000. Can I have a second to hire Streeter Associates for this work?
Second.
Thank you. Peter, anything to add to that?
You covered it pretty well.
Thank you, Peter. Appreciate that. And we're gonna get started on this ASAP, right?
I will call them tomorrow and we'll go through the contractual procedures. I've talked to them. They're ready to go. It's really just coordinating with Joe. When we get time for you to do it.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Motion to introduce, resolution introducing proposed local law and providing for a public hearing. Whereas the town board of the town of Seneca Falls believes it would be advantageous to the town to override the tax levy limit imposed by General Municipal Law Section 3C. Whereas Subdivision 5 of General Municipal Law Section 3C expressly authorized the town board to override the tax cap by the adoption of a local law approved by a vote of 60% of the town board. Now therefore be it resolved that the proposed law, local law number 8 of the year, entitled A Local Law to Override the Tax Levy Limit Established in General Municipal Law 3C, be and the same is hereby introduced before the town board of the town of Seneca Falls, New York. Be it further resolved that copies of the aforesaid proposed local law have been presented to each member of the town board. Be it further resolved that the town board will hold a public hearing on said proposed local law at the Town Recreation Center, 35 Water Street, Seneca Falls, New York, 6 p.m. on November 3rd, 2021. And be it further resolved that the town clerk publish or cause to be published a notice of said public hearing in the official newspaper of the town at least 5 days prior thereto. Upon adoption of the foregoing provision, the clerk distribute copies of the aforesaid local law to each member of the town board. Have a second for that, please.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion?
Just to reiterate what you said when you're talking about the budget, every year I've been on, since I've been on the board, we've done this as a proactive measure, and then the taxes have been flat every year. The two are not connected at all. This is something we do every year.
Any further discussion?
Most towns do.
Yeah. And Pat, just for the record, it's a very nice written resolution.
Why, thank you.
That's why you make the big bucks. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Thank you. Make a motion that we accept the resignation of recreation leader Paul Russo effective Friday, October 15th, 2021. Have a second for that, please?
Second.
Thank you. Any questions or discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Carried. We have announcement, fall leaf and brush pickup November 8th, 1 day only, unless you call Jim and be nice to him and maybe he'll extend it, but November 8th, right, Jim?
Yes, that's the correct one.
Okay. And Jim, can we get that, if you want to tell Melissa to get that on the website for us?
Yep, I can do that.
Okay?
I usually do that. I
You
usually
do
do it
that,
on the
Nikki?
website, I put it in the papers.
Okay, so
So we'll get that.
as long as we get it out there as much as
Yeah,
red,
we'll get it out.
maybe we can do a code red announcement or something. Okay. All right, another resolution, Water and Sewer Department, where paid adjustment raise, Josh Schaller, budgeted for 2020. Whereas the town board realizes that operator training, Josh Schaller has received his 2A plant and D distribution water operations license and has received the CDLB driver's license since becoming an operator trainee. Now therefore it resolved that the town of Seneca Falls Town Board does hereby authorize a raise of $2,000 an hour to a salary of $25 for Josh Schaller for obtaining all of these certifications. Have a second for that, please. Excuse me.
Second.
Thank you. Discussion.
I have a question. How many people at the water department do we need certified?
Again, they're hired as trainees and they go
But
through.
does everyone need to be certified?
That's a question for Joe Tula.
It's a program we entered into to give us maximum flexibility with the two plants. I think one of the questions we need to ask is this enough?
when do we stop? I
I
mean,
think we stopped
Wow.
within the new hires, we stopped at this point.
And plus, this is cross-training too.
Uh,
Am I right, Jim?
Yeah, all of our operators are on both facilities. We're not all licensed in both facilities, but
This is a good thing for like when COVID hit, most of our department was wiped out at one time. So it's really good to have them cross-trained so that they could go to other departments when we're only down to a couple of people. That has happened during COVID, so it's good to have them trained for both facilities and to have multiple ones, especially since they all work closely with each other and COVID spreads quickly, so.
that's good for the jobs and testing the coming in.
Yes, but it's good that there's a lot of them because, like I said, quite a few of them got wiped out all at the same time. So there was other people at other spots that could fill in for the other plants and vice versa. Thank you.
I know from the world that I came from, in education, I'm not saying it was the right, but I'm just saying, you were compensated for the further you increased your education, there was compensation to encourage you to become obviously more educated in what you're doing. But that's similar but not the same.
And this is, in terms of process, these certifications are one of the things that's considered as we figure out where a certain employee goes on that matrix. So that would give this employee more points. So, to me, I think we do this, but we also have to ask that question, at what point do we have enough people cross-trained that we're covered? It seems like we've got to be about there. But I think in terms of this is a program that we entered into to get this training done.
Is there a yearly review for each and every one of our employees by their spares?
Is there what?
A yearly review process. And is there a point in time where folks are then?
Well, there was last year, okay? Prior to that, there was a lot of lapses prior to that, but the new supervisor took care of it.
So has there been?
I'm not going to guarantee that I'm doing it this year, but it's not my job. I guess it would probably be shared amongst all the board members.
What's the process? Is there a process written on
Yeah.
how folks move through the matrix?
Absolutely. No, it's not tied into the annual review is not tied into the matrix at all, but in the town handbook, have you got one of those yet? Handbook? All right, I'll have to get you one. Anyway, in the town handbook, there's obviously policy for annual reviews for all of our employees. But as I noticed when I took over, wasn't being done.
Is that tied into the matrix?
No, those employee reviews, annual reviews, have never come back to the personnel committee for consideration about the matrix.
I would think they should.
Vertical
There
movement
needs to be a
is,
process that moves people along. I mean, this process is so arbitrary. You know, we throw $2 at a person here, $5 at a person here, and then of course these people over here feel left out, so we bump them up $1.50. It's so arbitrary and out of control.
I agree 100%. And that's, I hope you remember that when it comes time to look at the line item for the town manager. I hope, because all the things that you're saying are 100% right. Review of employees, some type of comprehensive compensation based on performance. All of those things are 100% right. Okay?
It could all be
a handbook. It could all be done by
department heads. They should be all, that's the process.
Good luck.
Yeah, but Doug and I went through every department head, every person that worked for them, through the matrix system. That's how the raises came about.
and the matrix doesn't really do performance reviews. Vertical movement is qualifications like this. Horizontal movement is basically time of employment.
Well, it certainly could be integrated into that. Performance and review could be part and parcel to whether you move vertically.
It could be, but it's not.
It just needs to be spelled out.
It should be, but it
It needs to be spelled out.
like Doug said earlier, when you're doing that matrix, it's the extra points for this CDL and the class that he puts
And
and that takes
then
into
when it
consideration.
comes raised time, that's taken into account, you get a raise. Well, these are just, you know,
So in the matrix, okay, if you're a highway person, a water and sewer person, you can get a bump up. How does Sarah Wright get a bump up?
I'll make the system.
Pardon?
She wants you to make the system.
I didn't ask you that. How does Sarah Wright, I'm just using her as a name because she's sitting here. How does Kathy Langford, how do they get a bump up?
Their supervisor would have to.
The supervisor sat with Doug and I, everybody, every supervisor with their
Everybody's got a
employees.
boss.
Okay, so.
Okay, their boss, and went through the matrix system on points of education, blah, 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 blah.
Okay, so.
And some of the people didn't move, they stayed there, some went up.
So, again, at least when you have some certification of completion of an education, you got that piece of paper. So if her supervisor or her supervisor doesn't come to the board with a resolution saying, I think they need a pay increase, an hourly bump up, it doesn't happen.
Right,
can't hear you.
there's no automatic.
I can't hear you.
There's no automatic, no.
No, so that you're missing.
So, if you say Melissa needs a raise, right, your confidential secretary, comes before.
I come to a resolution.
You, Doug, I, and Bev at the time, we sit down and go through.
No,
the
how,
matrix
okay,
system.
just answer my question. How do I give my confidential secretary a raise?
I just told you. Come to the personnel
Committee.
committee.
So does Joe Tulo come to the personnel committee and say, he does? You met with Joe Tulo on Josh Holler?
No, I'm just saying,
No, but, Mike, but this is in keeping with what we got on the matrix, and yes, it was by text because he's out of town, but yes, he did communicate with us about it. As far as any employee, it's not just certification. It's management responsibilities, it's the complexity of the job, it's guys like highway workers, sewer workers, it's physical, there are hazards associated with working with that job. There are any number of factors that move people horizontally. You know, I'm not saying the matrix is a great system, but it's what we have, and so that we've made the best of it as we can. But that's how it works. There's got to be a reason for movement vertically.
So-
In the case of Josh Haller and the other water employees, it's certification, but that's no way, by no way, means the only reason somebody might move.
So I guess the policy is, and all the supervisors know that if they want to move a non-water and sewer person out, that they meet with the personnel committee and provide a
Yeah, I
justification.
mean, they are, they go to bat and say, can we review this person again?
And has that happened in the last?
Yeah.
oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
Hasn't happened in the last 2 years, I know.
we're trying as
So it happened previous to my term.
We were just approached by the two judges for clerks,
Okay?
what, 3 weeks ago?
And what
I
happened?
said, we'll check with you, make a list, like he said tonight, make a list of their extra duties that the state put it on and stuff. When you get us that list, we'll meet and decide what's going on before, because the budget's coming up, and we can decide before the budget for some people.
I wasn't aware that you met with the courts and,
Yeah.
so I'm just saying, I've never seen a resolution in my 2 years here that would move up a person vertically, other than a water and sewer or highway person.
No,
I don't-
Doug and I met with the two judges, Judge Kelly and
Okay,
Judge Lefler.
I understand that, but this is my second year. I've never seen one in 2 years.
And I don't know,
Yeah.
that may well be true, but it's more coincidence than anything else. The department heads have to start the process. The other part of this is that we've been trying, we asked the judges to wait that any salary increase or adjustment happens at budget time, happens at the beginning of the new fiscal year. I'm perfectly fine with saying this starts January 1st. I would support that rather than.
We said that.
We've got to try to get.
We you've already said that, January 1st.
Well, again, that's not what was passed. It's effective, it doesn't say effective, I think the assumption is it's effective right now. But, so, and that's already been, motion made, second, and voted on.
Nobody voted on it.
You haven't voted on it? Okay, so then, no, if you want to add an amendment to that,
I move
please do.
it be amended to reflect implementation January 1, 2020.
Effective January 1. Okay, Nikki, you got that? Can I have a second for that amendment? I'll second it. Can I, discussion, have we done this, and I don't remember this, I don't think we've done this for other people.
No, we
that-
haven't. I keep saying that's our intent, and it hasn't happened. So it does single out this person, but at some point, we have to say, this has to happen
And
in association with the.
I agree 100% with you. I can't support that. I second it, but I can't support changing it in midstream. Okay, I think from here on out, we communicate to everybody. If you're looking for some type, it'll go in effective, at a certain time period. If it's the first quarter of the year, say it's the midpoint of the year. If it's the second quarter, like or third and fourth quarter, effective at the end of the year. I would agree 100% on that. Okay, we have an amendment and a second to change the resolution to be effective January 1st. All in favor of the amendment, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Opposed?
No.
No? Councilman Church, I didn't hear.
Well, I mean, it says it's budgeted for 2020 at the top.
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of, it raises the question to me is where is all this budgeted? I mean, I don't remember seeing a line item last year that said, hey, I'm budgeting all this money for these increases that people are going to get throughout the year.
No, there's a lump sum there for salaries.
But that should cover the salaries as they stand, not as it's going to be, because you don't know if they're going to get the certification. They may not pass. Right? They may not complete.
Sometimes they don't pass.
I mean, it's obviously a faulty.
I think he has a good idea. Yes, it's a faulty system. I think he has a good idea who's going to go out and get their training, but that's something that if Joe was here, he could probably answer. So
I'm gonna go effective 1/1. I'll support the amendment.
okay.
So
So effective amendment. So Doug said yes, I think, right? And Don said yes. Steve said yes, and David and Mike said no. So that's
Mike said no?
correct. So the motion is, or the amendment to the resolution passes 3-2.
David and Mike,
All in favor of the resolution as amended, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
Opposed?
Opposed?
What do you think?
He said opposed.
You're opposed also.
All right, so we have 2 A's.
Hang on, Frank, I'm confused enough, not talking to you now, they're really.
You gotta leave in 8 minutes.
I know. Hang on, Frank.
Oh, hang on.
My sincere condolences, Frank, by the way, I haven't seen you.
Steve, you,
Yeah. We passed the amendment to go effective January 1st, right?
Yes.
yes.
And now the resolution is effective January 1st.
Yes.
Correct?
As
You voted on that.
And we voted on that, and that passed 3-2?
Yes.
Steve, you voted,
I was opposed, you were opposed, David.
you were opposed?
So we had
You were opposed. Okay.
So that's no.
On the resolution?
No pay increase.
Okay.
motion
Motion?
to amend the resolution. Right?
Right. The motion to amend the resolution passed
Yes.
3-2.
Right.
The motion for the resolution
With amendment.
with the amendment passed.
Fail.
Failed 3-2.
All right, who were the 3 nays?
I feel like I'm in a county meeting.
Who were the 3 nays? Steve?
1, 2, 3.
Steve, David, and Mike.
3 to your left.
Okay, got it. All right, we're all set. 3 nays. So he doesn't get the raise?
No, no.
So So he gets the raise now, in other words? No, he gets the raise January 1st.
Wait, you can put it in the budget. We have a budget to do.
We got a budget.
You don't have a separate resolution.
First one was the amendment to go to 1st of January.
The amended resolution, the resolution was the amendment. Now you're getting it.
I want to give the raise, that's what I'm saying. Come on.
It's rejected. However,
That's why I said I was confused. You voted in opposite directions.
but you're in the middle of putting together a budget. If you were to do it for January 1, you could make it part of the budget without a separate resolution.
Frank, did you have something to say?
Yeah. First of all, I was the personnel director for 33 years at the county. I don't ever remember hiring a fully qualified water treatment plant operator or sewer plant operator. They all come in as trainees, so you get the advantage of hiring somebody at a lesser salary. They've got between 12 and 18 months to get their full certification. When they get it, they get promoted and they get the extra money simply because then they'll be working out a title. The resolution you just passed against this person, whoever he is, not getting the raise, tomorrow he's going to file a grievance because you violate past practice.
We don't have a union. He can't file a grievance.
What? Yes, he can under Article 686 of the
Civil Service Law?
General Municipal Law. There is a grievance procedure for every employee in the state. So he can file against you because you violated a past practice. You've been doing it for X number of years, and now you've just singled this person out not to get the raise. So he is going to do something. That's why you pay the lesser amount till the person's trained. When they get trained, they automatically move up. We've done this at the county for years with probation officer trainees, caseworker trainees. Whenever it happens, it happens. Yeah, if you've got a good budget person, yeah, maybe they could ask every department, is it going to happen in this budget cycle? I'm just saying.
You're right.
That's it. I'm done.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
Just to put it out there, since
You guys know I said 808, right?
since we're all talking about it. 2 months ago, the board moved up 2 water and sewer operators that went to the same classes with this employee. They went together as a group, took all their classes, passed. Well, I don't know if all of them passed, but the individuals who moved up passed. They got their certifications because Mr. Soller didn't get his until last Friday in the mail. You guys are going to do this to him now just because of that reason. When the 2 people 2 months ago got moved up.
Hey, Jim, I voted wrong the second time with this amendment.
No, you don't even have to answer. I just want to make the statement that the 2 people were brought up 2 months ago that followed the same path, they did the same things together, and now tomorrow I have to walk in and tell Josh he's not going to get this because of the change.
Thank you. Thank you.
Motion to revote.
All right, let me make the motion, you second it, okay? I'm gonna make a motion that we pay Josh Scheller, I make a motion, we pay Josh Scheller, authorize the raise of $2 per hour, to a salary of $25 per hour. Could I have a second for that?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed?
Aye.
Carried, 4-1. Peter, I hate missing the first pitch. So, Peter is going to eloquently explain Seeker. This is for the Kingdom Road Pump Station project. We're not going to complete the whole thing tonight. We're going to look at it. Peter wants you to make sure you have it in your possession. And please look it over carefully. Please do due diligence to this report, okay? We will complete the process. I think, Peter, October 25th budget meeting?
That's correct.
It's going to be an add-on to that night.
Yeah, and again, I'm going to be quick, Mike, but I don't need to review the whole thing. We have part 3, this is supporting information.
about a 12-page document. It walks through each of the issues that we've identified, potential impacts for the project we've identified. It's a very standard project from an environmental impact standpoint. This provides the board, essentially the board is, it's the board's review. We provide the information as a consultant to the board. Ultimately, it's the board's determination. Part 2 pretty much goes through the potential impacts. The way New York State handles it, they walk through each potential impact and different subcategories. Part 3 identifies those impacts and talks about how those impacts will be mitigated. For the Kingdom Road project, this is actually a redo from 2015, I believe, from the original seeker. The board and the attorney elected to redo it just to kind of ensure that we're showing an updated process. You have documentation. We need to show a 30-day minimum window. We've received feedback from DOT, Seneca County, I believe Department of Agriculture. I don't know if you've received any other feedback yet. No objections to the town serve as lead agency. And October 25th action provides ample time for the board to consider that. I'll be here for that budget meeting to kind of walk through it. And at that point in time, there'll be a decision made regarding the potential impacts, what type of action it is, and if it warrants a completion of the EAF or an environmental impact statement. Typically, this is a negative declaration, type 1 action, standard project. That's typical. Obviously, it's the board's determination, but we're not really making a recommendation on that outcome.
We have to have it done by November 3rd or 4th or 5th or something.
Well, this is part of the reason we're making the push is that the town chooses to apply for a WIA grant for King Road, which I believe the town will. This is part of that. Typically, you want to have seeker done before you go on the bond resolution as well. So the seeker happens first, and the bond resolution after that.
So otherwise, everybody should have this both electronically and now on paper, for this meeting. Please take a look at it, and, we're available for questions beforehand, but also for the meeting on the 25th. So please take a look through. Please feel free to give us a call with any questions.
This is not a final document. It's for yours, so if there's any comments, please keep them to me. Certainly, any other agencies that come in, this identifies the agencies we've heard from so far. Any other agencies that provide any feedback will incorporate that document. So if there's any comments, let us know about the final document on the 25th.
Thank you for your work, Kat. Thank you for collaborating with Peter on all that. Peter, we're set at 10 o'clock, right?
Correct.
And if the Yankees lose, I won't be there. I'd like to make a motion that we provide a water and sewer credit. You have the documentation provided by Sarah there. There's only one request for a credit. Can I have a second for that, please?
Second.
All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Thank you. Is there any other new business in front of this board? Yes, Missy?
Quick question, can we vote to fill Paul's position? I don't think we did that. We accepted his resignation.
We should do that.
I think we should do that.
Okay. I'm going to make a motion that we fill the position of recreation leader upon the resignation of Paul Russo. Have a second for that, please? Second. All in favor? Aye. Excuse me, Dan. Missy, can you do me a favor tomorrow? Can you contact the personnel office at the county, Chris Wagner's office?
I already have.
You already have? Anybody on the list?
There's one.
Okay. So just let him know that officially, okay?
Yep. He said he would help me with.
Mr. Horn.
You made reference to it earlier in the meeting, but I just want to make sure that the board considered action to schedule public hearings for the bond resolutions for the Kingdom Road project and the equalization tank for your November 3rd meeting.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah. That's
for bond resolutions for the Kingdom Road and the equalization tank.
King Road only, the equalization, this is before Matt's time. The equalization tank was completed last year.
So I would encourage you to schedule both. You don't have to have both, but to schedule both because there's a meeting on budgets tomorrow, and if anything gets out of whack and you have to change that number in the equalization tank bond resolution, I have to do it.
resolution to schedule a public hearing for the next meeting, which is November, that
Third.
Wednesday, November 3, 6 p.m. For public hearing on bond resolution, Kingdom Road Sewer Project, and the equalization tank. And Nikki will get you necessary wording for that, for the advertisements.
Okay. So I'll make the motion that we establish a November 3rd public hearing for banding purposes for the Kingdom Road Pump Station sewer project and the equalization tank. Can I have a second for that? Thank you. Any discussion? So we have two public hearings that night.
What time?
Let's schedule that for 6 o'clock as well.
Maybe I can both at the same time?
Yeah, you can do it both at the same time, and it doesn't matter. It starts at 6 o'clock. I don't think you're going to get a whole lot of public outcry on either one. Yeah. Well, the preliminary budget, I'm sorry. Yeah, but the banding part, I don't think you're going to get a whole lot of public cry. Okay, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. So carried. Yes, sir.
Just a comment, please. The reason I was talking with
Clock is running out of time.
maybe I should text you in an email then. I was wondering that one time you had a committee to get service people's names on the wall in there. My son didn't quite qualify, although he was in the service for quite a while. But you don't even have a committee now that the question can be.
Are you talking about that position?
No.
It's talking about the names on the windows in the veterans aid.
I have no idea.
Armies, Marines, etc. But there used to be a committee, but now there isn't even.
No, I have no clue. Do you know?
I am checking with our boosters club. The people that were on that committee aren't around any longer, so we are trying to find that out.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about something else.
No, that's why I was gonna.
Got it. Okay, can I make a motion that we pay the bills for the month?
Second.
Huh? Did it already? I have a motion to pay the bills for the month of September. Second, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Have a motion for adjournment, please. Second. Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Have a good evening, folks.